Yo, whoa, what is going on YouTube? It's your boy Dan, aka aDrive, bringing you guys a brand new video today, and today we are diving into a brand new Pokemon Unite tier list video. And this is going to be an epic video because we are breaking down all of the Pokemon in Pokemon Unite. I think it's 23 Pokemon, and how they are functioning in the competitive metagame after the most recent mobile launch and the recent balance patch that came with that, where a ton of Pokemon saw a ton of different changes, from things like defensive buffs on Garchomp to Venusaur's Petal Dance and Giga Drain becoming incredibly more viable, fly movement speed being increased on Talonflame, and much, much more. So we're gonna be breaking that all down. So if you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button down below, and make sure you guys subscribe to the channel if you guys are new, as I do post Pokemon videos every single day, and I also live stream Pokemon Unite every single day at twitch.tv/aDrive, so feel free to tune in there. I'm actually doing this live on Twitch with some of my teammates, my Team Shiny esports team. I've got two of my teammates here, so this is going to be a discussion video where you get the perspectives of three players: myself, Heat, and Feppy. All of us have been ranked in the top 500. Heat and Feppy, top 200 players. These guys are incredible, so really excited to have them here on this call. So first off is Heat. Heat is pretty much our Lucario player, but also puts in a lot of work with a ton of other characters. What's going on, Heat?
Hey, how's it going, man?
Excited to have you here, our beatboxing champion, of course. And second, you guys remember him from another video. We have Feppy on the call, our support player, who's known to main a ton of characters like Eldegoss and Blissey and even Snorlax itself and many more. Feppy can pretty much play anything. This guy's a legend. What's up, Feppy? How you doing, man?
Yo, thanks for having me back. I appreciate it.
I know, 2 videos in like 3 days. I got you guys on the channel a bunch, which is great. So I'm excited to have you guys on the call, and excited to have you guys kind of lend your expertise and your knowledge. You guys are very established players in this metagame, so excited to get your perspective. So we're gonna get things kicked off here with Venusaur. We're just gonna jump into things here, and we'll have timestamps as well. KG will put together timestamps for everyone if you want to skip to your favorite character. Just remember, if we don't rate a character highly or whatever, you may disagree, right? You're entitled to your opinions. Leave them in the comments, but that's not a bash on the character. That's simply that we just don't feel that it's as viable as some other characters. So we're gonna do our best to kind of separate those so you guys have an understanding of where the metagame is headed. So Venusaur is our first character, and obviously Venusaur is a Pokemon that was already pretty solid with things like Sludge Bomb and Solar Beam. But now it has this new set, this kind of bruiser engaging build where you can run Petal Dance and Giga Drain and add a tremendous amount of sustain to Venusaur. So I think with this patch, it just dropped, so there's still a lot of playtesting to be had, but I think Venusaur ranks pretty highly, guys. Would you guys say that Venusaur is pushing the S tier, or would you say it's falling into the A tier right now?
Yeah, I think it would be in that weird spot of bottom of S or top of A, right? Like, because they're effectively the same thing. So you could put it in either, but it is very, very strong. Yeah,
I think we're going to start this thing off in A tier, man. I feel like we're looking at it from the Giga Drain and the Petal Dance set, but I think there's a lot of value in its Solar Beam sniping capabilities as well, and I think you have that versatility of going into a match and kind of predicting based on the opposing team on which set you want to run. So I think that there's a lot of viability there. So we'll start it off in A tier to kick off this video. I think that's pretty solid. Any thoughts on your end, Feppy?
Venusaur is the Lucario of ranged assassins.
I like it, man. I like it.
He's really good now.
Yeah,
he can either be a really good far range DPS or really good bruiser. So.
Yeah, I like it. Well, we'll jump into the next Pokemon, Talonflame. Heat, you want to talk a little about Talonflame?
Yeah, Talonflame just got a slew of buffs in it. We see it making Talon much stronger. I think, I personally think Talonflame is high A tier as well, if not low S, but we could put it right behind Venusaur, in my opinion.
Any thoughts, Feppy?
Talonflame is S tier for sure. Talonflame is one of the best burst abilities in the game now, because they buffed Fly.
Yeah, I think
and also one of the best escape abilities in the game. Absolutely destroys characters like Cinderace. Almost removes them from the meta entirely, just because Talonflame can hit 50 to 60% of somebody's HP.
Talon Smiting is also really good in a competitive sense. So
Talon Smiting is one of the best.
S or A is also good. I think A is fine because I think S tier will have a lot of characters if we do it.
Yeah, I'm gonna settle for A there, and I think one of the funny things is Talonflame has been consistently rated pretty low on these tier lists, but that upgrade to its attack stat and that upgrade to its fly mobility and damage is insane. And if you don't know, you can actually Fluffy Tail while you're in the air, which we were messing around with yesterday. So the ability to kind of come in at the very end of an objective and steal an objective is insane. I think Talonflame's a mon that really needs the jungle though. It's so bad, or so frail early game in the lane. So if it can kind of get in and out of fights effectively, then it could be really powerful. So we'll keep that thing in A tier for now. Feppy, I'll let you talk Snorlax. We'll skip Zeraora. We'll do Snorlax next. What are you thinking about Snorlax, Feppy?
I mean, Snorlax essentially didn't get touched outside of the yawn change, but Block was already incredibly strong anyways. Like, Snorlax is still an easy A for me. He's the standard go-to tank if you want to have the normal standard tank of a MOBA. He's very strong. He's very consistent. He just does everything you need him to do.
What do you think, an S or A tier on Snorlax?
I think A tier as well. I think that's a fair assessment. I mean, Yawn was a better moveset. It got nerfed. Block is still really, really good, but it got nerfed 2 patches ago, so I think he's dropped out of S tier.
All right, well, we can't just have every Pokemon in A tier, so let's talk Lucario next, Heat.
Yeah, can you make like an S+++ tier and throw Lucario in it?
Yeah, we already know Lucario, which got nerfed, air quotes, didn't really get nerfed. Heat, tell us about that patch on Lucario.
Yeah, that was crazy. So they nerfed Power Up Punch. They buffed Close Combat. I've been testing Close Combat. I don't think it's that great outside of Pub Stomping, but I mean, Lucario Extreme Speed did not get nerfed, and they released Razor Claw, which is a pretty big buff to Extreme Speed, so I just think Lucario is better now than it was pre-nerf. I don't think it was really a nerf. And the Power Up Punch nerf was like 70 damage or something, so it didn't even end up mattering.
Yeah, crazy stuff there. Lucario, one of the premier Pokemon of the game. I think we could probably say Lucario is the best Pokemon in the game right now. Would you guys agree?
Yeah, I think Lucario and Blastoise both hold. Oh, we'll get there, but yeah, I think they're both top of the game.
Yeah, it's just such a strong Pokemon. The fact that people are running 3 bottom strategy and putting Lucario top by itself speaks enough to what Lucario can do. It's insane. Well, let's kind of spread out this tier list a little bit. Let's talk Gardevoir. We don't have a G tier, but Feppy, tell us about Gardevoir.
Can we put this in not released because Guardy's that bad? Like, the problem with Guardy right now is that Guardy is super weak in the early game and gets punished by characters like Talonflame, Venu, Snorlax, Lucario. Just gets really punished in the early game, and by the time you get to the late game, all the A tier and S tier heroes are like 3 levels ahead of the Guardy, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, unfortunately Gardevoir is a really good late game hero with things like Psyshock and being able to hit really hard and stun with Moonblast. There's a lot of value there, but because it takes so long to get to that point, and as you mentioned, a lot of Pokemon tend to be a higher level at the end of the game, Ralts is just gets bullied early. It's just very, very weak. And we actually kind of collectively think it's probably the worst hero right now in the game. Would you guys agree with that too?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, if you're winning with Guardy, it's not because you're good, it's because the enemy team's bad.
That's fair.
Yep.
So, a lot of Gardevoir mains just dislike the YouTube video. I'm just gonna call them out on that because you know that just happened. I'll jump ahead to Crustle here. Crustle, I'm very frustrated, by the way. Crustle is bugged once again, pun intended, but you actually can't even use him in tournaments because he continues to have bugs with his ultimate and things like that. So we really even haven't had a chance to get a full perspective of what this thing can do. But I'm a big believer of the Stealth Rock set, being able to kind of farm objectives and burn through them. I think there's some things to be tested with X-Scissor and Weakness Policy with some of the new items that have been added. Can deal some pretty good damage there. I was running a Score Shield attack weight Weakness Policy set with Crustle, and it was putting in some pretty good work, so I think there's some value there. But I still feel like Crustle, despite his insane mobility, his incredible opportunities to split push, he is still a very niche character, and because he does a similar role to Lucario, it's very difficult to put Crustle any higher than B in my opinion. How do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, I think that's accurate. I mean, I also think Talonflame is doing the same thing Crustle does, but better now if you're running Talon jungle, because Talon's back caps are pretty insane and Talon's mobility is really, really good. So I think, yeah, the drop from A to B makes sense.
Yeah, I would say that that's kind of where it falls. Again, all these Pokemon can function in the right scenario, right? So even if something's ranked low, that doesn't mean don't use it. We're just trying to compare the Pokemon to the other Pokemon in the game and kind of what's being used right now in competitive. So actually, Feppy, why don't you talk a little bit about Mime? I know you're a big Mime guy right now. What are you thinking about this character?
Okay, so Choice Specs, the new item, is really good on Mime. He does even more damage than he did before, and his whole thing is running and doing burst damage and running out. So I've actually been running a Glass Cannon Mime set with all of the special attack items, and he can do like 70% of a backliner's HP in the late game, which is gigantic. His biggest problem is that he doesn't have mobility, but he also has way better zoning than Talonflame, so I think he's actually an A. He's just comparable to Talonflame, just different. Does slightly different things.
Would you agree with that, Heat? That he would be A tier?
No, I think Mime's B tier still. I mean, Feppy's a
Oh,
little bit
you troll.
biased. Mime's really good. Mime can counter the 3-bot really well. So we're seeing it as like a counter pick, but I'd say outside of that specific niche use case, Mime isn't that great.
Yeah, I tend to think that Mime falls into B tier right now. I think Feppy's a little. Feppy's very
Trolls.
good. We'll put it in a high B. We'll put it in a high
You'll
B.
see.
I think.
You'll see.
Yeah, Feppy's like, just wait till the next one when we put it in S tier. That's funny.
Just wait till I force you to play with me on Mime for the next 20 games because of this.
I can't wait. Let's talk Blastoise next, right? Blastoise is a Pokemon that ultimately got some nerfs, right? They were bug fixes, they were called, but I don't really think they change a ton to Blastoise's viability. He still has one of the best Unite moves in the game, still has the ability to kind of burn through objectives with Water Spout or even just Rapid Spinning. I think this is either high A or S. I think you guys are going to probably teeter on S, right? Its Unite move is just so good.
Yeah, I think he's definitely S tier. I mean, also, like, you just swap out Water Spout for Hydro Pump now, and he has the same moveset he had when he first released, which we thought was better anyway. Yeah, I don't think he's moved much.
Yeah, just such a strong Pokemon. That Unite move just to take objectives is so good. If you can get 9 for that first Dreadnought, it's GG. And it's so good in jungle too. Like the fact that you're sending this defender to jungle is nuts. Any thoughts, Feppy?
Yeah, I mean, if Blastoise could do only his Unite move and had no abilities, he'd still be A tier. So
that's fair. That's actually very fair. Let's talk, Feppy. Why don't you talk a little about Slowbro?
Do I have to?
I mean, yeah, you do.
He's easily the worst defender in the game right now. His Surf got nerfed a couple patches ago, and then he doesn't really do any damage. His CC is pretty poor. If you have to run Telekinesis, it's not that strong. Like, if you're running Amnesia, sure, you're a bit tankier, but like, what are you doing with that tankiness? Because you do no damage. And then the only other thing that he's useful for right now is a niche counter pick against stuff like Blastoise, and you just press the ult on him. But that's the only thing he's good for, is his ultimate, and it's not even that great.
Yeah, I'd have him above Guardian C tier probably.
Okay, yeah. I'm not necessarily concerned about how things stack in different tiers, so I'm not too worried about that. But we'll say Slowbro, unfortunately, is C tier. Again, there's just better defenders. When you can run a Blastoise or a Snorlax, there's no reason to run a Slowbro at this point. The way things are kind of playing out. So I'll talk Pika next. Pikachu is I think actually has a little bit more viability now with the new choice specs item, being able to boost his special attack, deal a little bit more damage. It is a very good ranged attacker, and obviously has those nice stuns with things like Thunderbolt and Electro Ball. Its basic attack is really strong. It has an okay Unite move, but it just really struggles against kind of a buddy barrier heavy meta game. I'm kind of feeling like Pika just falls into B tier right now, guys. I feel like as good as he can be, he's only as good. Like, he really needs a super good front line to be able to deal a ton of damage and be able to deal that. Like, if you are behind in a game, Pikachu feels useless. If you're ahead in a game, it feels like such a great support. I know it's an attacker, but it kind of functions as a support. I'm thinking B tier, and I'm someone who plays a lot of Pika.
Yeah, I think that's accurate.
I don't play Pika, no comment.
Fair enough. Yeah, I feel like I said, you really notice it. When you win that first Dreadnought, Pika feels so good. When you lose that first Dreadnought, it feels so bad because it's so hard to farm with him. He's so slow to burn the mobs. It just feels like you get so far behind. So I'm gonna put Pika in B. I hope it does get a power spike, but choice specs definitely helps a little bit. So hopefully he'll get some scaling adjustments in the future. Feppy, let's talk Eldegoss. You know Eldegoss pretty well.
Eldegoss A tier for sure. Like borderline S in my opinion. Eldegoss is the best support right now. Leaf Tornado is incredibly strong. Eldegoss is extremely tanky, and so Eldegoss never really has to worry about stuff like a Talonflame, especially when you're running Focus Pin. So Eldegoss is very safe, has one of the best abilities in the game for a support, which is Leaf Tornado, and just speeds your entire team, and then Cotton Guard is incredibly good at keeping your team alive. So is definitely the best support in the game right now, without a doubt.
Yeah, I think that almost warrants an S tier just because of the claim, right? Like, it's almost a must-pick character at this point. So I think S tier. I mean, if not, then the very top of A. But
yeah, I think that's fair. I think let's actually talk Blissey. Feppy, why don't you just jump on Blissey and we'll kind of compare the two, and then we'll put the top one in A S tier. I think that's fair.
Yeah, the problem with Blissey right now is Blissey's move speed increase is less than Eldegoss. So if you pick Eldegoss, Blissey's move speed just does nothing because you just run away from the attack speed increase and it's useless. And the other problem is that Blissey is a melee hero, so contributes almost no damage in team fights right now because if Blissey steps up, she dies. The only like saving grace on Blissey right now is Safeguard and her ultimate, but it's not, those two factors alone are not good enough to make up for the downsides of running it over Eldegoss.
So would you
and
put
Aldi's ult is nuts.
Yeah, would you put Blissey in B in that case then?
I actually think LD goes S and then Blissey goes A, the way I'm looking at it.
That sounds fair. I like that.
Yeah, some really good points there.
Because Blissey is really good and still viable. It's just not Eldegoss.
That's fair. I thought you brought up some really good points. And again, Feppy, our expert support player. So if anyone knows those Pokemon, it's definitely Feppy. I'll save Wigglytuff for later, so you have something else to talk about later on for sure. Why don't you give us your perspective on Greninja right now? Which got nerfed, air quotes.
Yeah, I don't think Gren's nerf was as bad as we thought it would be. I mean, I still think he's A tier. I think there's better jungle picks in Talonflame, Blastoise. Even we're seeing Venu jungle come out of the meta now, but I think he's still very good, so I think A tier is fair. They nerfed his damage by like, I want to say 5%, but then they also made his ult a much shorter cooldown. I think, yeah, A tier is probably the right bet.
Yeah, I'm feeling like this is one of those high A, low S kind of situations as well. It does feel like, I think when you compare the two, what Talonflame does and what Greninja does, they have some similar roles in terms of being able to function in the jungle. The new Greninja ult is really a game changer for it because of the activation time, being able to get some serious kind of smites with that. So, Feppy, do you have any thoughts on Greninja?
Yeah. The thing that holds Greninja back from S tier, in my opinion, is that he's very squishy. And if he gets caught out, he's just dead. Now, that being said, that's not necessarily the only reason why you would say a character is an S tier. But because like characters like Talonflame and Blastoise, if they see a Greninja in their general vicinity, Greninja's dead.
Yeah, and even Venu in a team fight just using Petal Dance would just kill a Greninja without even realizing it was there sometimes.
That's actually really funny. Okay, cool. Well, let's keep going. We've got the all-arounder Charizard getting some pretty big changes, probably one of the most drastic Pokemon to be changed heading into this most recent patch. Its Unite move got almost a complete rework where it actually does the slam first and then engages with the flamethrower in the air. Got a couple other changes. Flamethrower giving you movement speed increase, a cooldown reduction to Fire Blast, getting a knockback effect or a burn effect with Fire Punch. So a lot of changes to Charizard actually, and it still gets its Unite move incredibly fast, even though that was slightly tweaked. So you're able to get off usually three Unite moves in a game. I'm feeling like Charizard falls into A tier now at this point. With all those things said, I think it can burn through objectives. That's the set I've been running, is like a Fire Blast Fluffy Tail set. It's a little slow to get scaled, but even with some of the new items like Razor Claw and stuff, being able to utilize its Flame, which is actually a melee attack, I think Charizard does fall into A tier. But what are you guys thinking about that?
Yeah, I agree. I think Charizard's easy A tier. We're seeing it come out as a jungle option in competitive play. He got a pretty big buff. He has, move speed added to Fire Blast, which now makes him pretty much have an Eldegoss Tornado under him at all times. It's just really good.
Feppy?
Yeah, another hot take. Sorry, Guardy players, but Charizard is just Gardevoir if Gardevoir was good.
Oof. Oof. Gardevoir players getting ruined in this video, that's for sure. Sorry guys, but I guess it just be like that sometimes. Big changes to Cramorant actually. Cramorant getting a couple nerfs, Surf getting nerfed, did get a little bit of a buff. It's also got, I think, a damage reduction on its Unite move. Heat, how are you feeling about Cramorant right now?
Yeah, I think Cramorant's a B tier. I mean, he was an A tier. I think he goes down to B tier. The nerfs to Surf and the buffs to other characters just see Cramorant being replaced by things like Venusaur, for example, where, you'd rather run that character that can just completely take over a team fight. The nerf to Cram's ult is also pretty noticeable. He does quite a bit less damage unless he's really ahead. So yeah, I think B is pretty fair. He's still competitively viable and he does the same thing. He's a good pick champion, just not, not the powerhouse it used to be.
Any thoughts, Feppy?
Yeah, I mean, you still pick him for the same reasons. He's very good as a pick hero. His ultimate's very strong. It's just he got nerfed, and those things aren't nearly as good as they used to be after the nerf. So B
Yeah.
tier.
Still a really good early game lane Pokemon, and still a really good Unite move that can zone off objectives. But again, just a little weaker than it used to be, so that kind of makes things a little trickier. All right, Feppy, talk to me about Wigglytuff, which apparently sleep was bugged. So what does that do to Wigglytuff, man?
I mean, I think people were starting to pick a rollout more than Sing towards the end of the patch, anyways. And the only problem is that Wiggly doesn't do nearly as much damage now. But I don't think people picked the Wiggly for damage. So if the damage was nice on top of it. She's an A tier. Wiggly's got to be A tier at least, because Wiggly's ultimate wins games, and the fact that rollout is still really good, Pound is still pretty good in the early game, Dazzling Gleam is pretty good at dealing damage. Like, the only thing that really changed is that Wiggly does less damage, but that's not the reason why you picked her. It's just the fact that she did damage was a bonus.
Fair enough. Any thoughts, Heat?
Yeah, I agree. I think A tier is fair. I mean, sleep's not nearly as good as it used to be. So the bug is that if you sleep someone as Wigglytuff, you can't really wake them up, but someone else can. I think, yeah, the damage nerfs and the early lane pressure that it does not, the loss of early lane pressure puts it into A tier.
Fair enough. I left a lot of the junglers at the end, apparently. Someone just pointed out, but that's okay. Let's do Garchomp. Garchomp, an interesting pick. Got a defense buff, both his physical defense and his special defense being buffed in the most recent patch. But kind of the biggest thing was the held item changes. Razor Claw potentially being added to what Garchomp can do. A lot of really cool things going on there. Obviously very, very bad in the early game still with Gible into Gabite. But I think Garchomp has kind of climbed out of the depths of C tier, and I would put him in B tier right now. But I'm actually really curious what you guys think.
Yeah, I think so as well. We were running comp Garchomp strats before, and we thought he was C tier, and now he's been buffed, and items have been released that benefit him. So I think B tier is totally fair.
Feppy?
Yeah, I'm not too big of a fan of Garchomp right now. He doesn't fit in the meta. He does massive sustained damage, but the meta is bursting a single target down. He just doesn't fit.
That's fair. That's very good analysis there. Heat, why don't you talk about Cinderace? Cinderace, kind of one of the premier jungle/laners, has been competing with Greninja for the top ADC. What do you think about Cinderace right now?
Cinder is nuts. The Pyro Ball buff is massive. Pyro Ball does a ton of damage. The buff to the dash cooldown is actually insane because of the new item they released, the Razor Claw, where if you use an ability, your next attack deals bonus damage. All of Cinder's spells, I should say, or moves give it a boosted auto when it's done doing the move. And then that boosted auto is then stacked with the Razor Claw, which makes it really strong. I think Cinder is like easily A tier. I think people are sleeping on it. It might even be S tier, but let's go with A tier. Also, Cinder has a bug right now where the boosted auto has 50% extra range, which is insane.
Yeah. Dude, it's actually nuts. You can be like halfway across the map and you still get hit by it.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy stuff. And it seems as though we've actually got a lot of Pokemon falling into the A tier. And I think that that's a good thing, right? I feel like that's a sign of a good balance right now. And it feels like this newest patch has given us a little bit more balance in the game. It's not so much about the same 6 heroes. There's a little bit more kind of variety. I feel like all the Pokemon that are fitting into S and A tier right now are very, very viable. So I think that's actually a really good sign of kind of what we're seeing. Feppy, why don't you tell us a little bit about Alolan Ninetales, which had some bug fixes, but otherwise has been pretty unchanged for a while.
Yeah, Ninetales is in a very weird spot in the meta right now because the problem with Ninetales is you have to build around Ninetales to be successful, because you have to keep the Ninetales alive because she can't do it herself. If you can keep it alive, it's great, but if you can't keep it alive, it's just bad, and you'd rather run something like a Cinderace in that slot. So I have to say Ninetales is B right now. Ninetales just gets run over sometimes by stuff like Charizard and Blastoise and Talonflame, and you can't really save yourself.
Heat?
As the resident Ninetales main, I have to hard disagree. Hard disagree. I think Ninetales is still A tier. Ninetales used, like, Cramorant and Ninetales used to occupy the same slot, and I think Ninetales is now better than Cramorant in that slot. I think you still pick Ninetales in a comp viable strategy if you're not running like 3-bot with Venu or something like that. If you're running like a standard comp, I think Ninetales still owns that slot. So yeah, I think A tier easy.
I'm gonna side, no offense, Feppy, I'm gonna side with the A tier on this one. Just high B, low A. I just feel like its early game capabilities with kind of freezing is really strong. I feel like it's boosted auto with Aurora Veil very good. Its Unite move isn't half bad. So I feel like Ninetales has pretty much remained unchanged, and consistently I feel like it's been sitting at that A tier for a while now, so I'm gonna keep it there. Feppy, why don't you give me your thoughts on Absol?
Heat.
Why don't you give me your thoughts on Absol?
Yeah, I mean, Absol's buffs were massive, bigger than I think anyone expected them to be in terms of impact. I think Absol is also, you know, like high B, low A in that area.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of experience with Absol. All I know is I was getting absolutely crit destroyed in the last couple days since the update. So I'm gonna put him in high B, low A as well. For now, we'll kind of keep it there. I think that there's some variance there. I think you could go either way. It's actually really good in lane early game because of how much damage it does. And again, if you get caught up by yourself later on, if you're like a squishy, if you're, you know, a Pikachu or something like that, and you get kind of singled out by an Absol, you're just dead. I mean, the amount of times I see, you know, 2,200 damage show up on my screen from a crit, it's very sad. So I think that's a Pokemon. I'm gonna put it in B, but I think you can make an argument for A for sure.
Yeah, I don't think it scales as well as Talonflame or some of the other, you know, the other jungle options. And I think in lane it's really, really strong. But again, you'd rather have maybe a Venu or something competitively. But it is really, really good.
That's fair. Feppy, I'll let you pick one of the last three here: Zera, Gengar, or Machamp. What do you want to talk about?
Oh, out of these I play Machamp, so we'll run this.
All right.
Machamp's really awkward right now. He doesn't do a ton of damage unless you can get into the middle of the enemy team. And if you get into the middle of the enemy team and the enemy team is like Cinderace, Talonflame, you just die and there's nothing you're gonna do. Like he just does not occupy a very solid spot in the meta. And what are you gonna do? Run Machamp over like Talonflame in jungle? Like, I just don't think you ever do that. Like, we can talk about whether or not he's B or C, but I'm pretty sure he's a C because he just doesn't do anything useful right now.
Yeah,
Any
I agree
objections,
with that.
Heat?
No, I agree with that. I think he's C as well. I think he doesn't do enough burst damage to be meta viable at the moment.
Fair enough. I'll talk Gengar. Gengar's gone through kind of a... Well, first of all, Gengar has the best skin in the game, so that automatically gives him a little bit extra points. But jokes aside, he's got two really cool sets. You can obviously run the Hex set, or you can run like kind of the Dream Eater Shadow Ball combo. Both can be really good in terms of you know, using him as a jungler. He really needs to get that Haunter 7 kind of power spike, but unfortunately in lane he can be really, really underwhelming initially. But now that people are running that 3 bottom lane, there is some viability there for Gengar in lane. But again, just kind of outclassed right now by some of the other characters. So I'm kind of feeling him in B tier. What do you guys think?
Oh, I think choice specs were a massive buff for Gengar, to be honest. I actually think Gengar is super slept on. I would probably put him in A tier. But I understand the sentiment. I just think, like, once people realize how insane choice specs are and you start getting hit by Shadow Balls for like a quarter of your health, he's really, really strong.
That's fair, Feppy. You get to be the deciding vote, A or B on Gengar.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to say B. I'm a bit hesitant on him. He's very squishy in the early game, and Lick is very strong in lane, but again, it's the same situation of what are you gonna do? Run this guy in jungle? Like, you can't. If you run him in jungle, you're not running Cinderace or Greninja or Talonflame or Blastoise or heck even Venu in the jungle. Like, if there's 5 other characters that are being run in your slot before you, you can't be A tier.
That's fair. I respect that, and I think it's important to remember that some of these Pokemon, while we can evaluate them standing on their own, we have to try to also factor in how they function in a team comp, how they function kind of compared against other Pokemon that run similar roles. So it does get a little bit blurry on certain Mons, and I think it's important to reemphasize that you know, you can have a Gardevoir be amazing and pop off in a game just because we put it in C tier, but it's just not standing out against other Pokemon that are in similar roles. Heat, I'll let you talk Zeraora to wrap this up.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're realizing Zeraora's buffs were actually pretty insane, at least when it comes to his early game kit. I mean, again, this is another hot take. I actually think Zeraora is S tier. I think Zeraora is probably the best early game character in the game, other than Lucario. I think you pick him in a lot of situations. Well, like in a regular 2-1-2 meta, you run him in the other lane. If in a 3-man bot lane, he could play the 3rd-man bot and hit level 10 pretty early. I think he's really strong. I understand there's an argument for A because people picked before him, but I think there's team comps that are built around him that are then just absolutely crazy. I also think he synergizes really, really well with Venusaur because Discharge plus Petal Dance is absolutely ridiculous. I don't know. I think S are like the top of A if we're not putting him in S. I don't know if everyone here will agree though.
Feppy?
I mean, I'm thinking borderline between A and S as well, so I'm okay with putting him in S. His ultimate just does what you want to do right now. It does big damage and it stuns, which is exactly what you would like in this current meta. If you run like a Zeraora bot lane, for example, with a Talonflame jungle, Talonflame just flies in, you press ult on somebody as Zeraora, and the target's dead. And Zeraora is also extremely strong at just diving the backlines and punishing weaker backlines. So if the enemy team's running Greninja or Cinderace, you just volt switch in, discharge, triple auto that target, and they take 80% of their HP. So it's very, very good right now.
All right, well, that is our tier list. Is there anything you guys, after looking at it now, that you would tweak or change?
I mean, just to troll Feppy, I'd move Mime into C tier and or not even released yet, but
hey, that's rude.
Fair enough, fair enough. Well, this is where, myself, Heat, and Feppy are ranking the metagame right now after the most recent Pokemon Mobile Unite patch that has shaked things up, and I think it's a really healthy thing that we have a lot of these Pokemon falling into A and S tier. I think that that's a sign of more balance, and I think looking at this list and seeing the A and S tier, I actually feel that all those Pokemon are incredibly viable. And again, you could use any Pokemon at any time and have them function successfully. We're trying to speak from a competitive tournament perspective. A lot of tournaments coming up this weekend, so we'll see if some things change. But ultimately, I feel like this list is actually pretty solid, so I feel really good about it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed us making this video. You can check out Heat and Feppy in the description below. Go drop them a follow on their Twitch channels. You can watch us practicing pretty much every single day. I stream those practices as well, and we're gonna be doing some tournaments coming up as well. So if you have any thoughts, feel free to leave them in the comments section below. If you agree, disagree, or just hate me because of my face, let me know in the comments section below. Be sure to like the video if you guys enjoyed and subscribe to the channel if you guys are new, as I do post Pokemon videos every single day. For myself, Heat, and Feppy, we will see you guys on the next one. Peace.